The screaming cut through the morning air like a blade through silk. Jake Hartwell dropped his coffee cup, the tin clattering against the porch boards as he bolted toward the sound. Through the cottonwoods he could see them, two small figures huddled behind his water trough, one crying, the other trying to hush her. "Don't take my sister," the older girl sobbed, clutching a bundle of rags that turned out to be a child no more than 4 years old. "Please, mister, we ain't done nothing wrong." Jake stopped dead in his tracks. The girls were covered in dust and dried blood, their dresses torn and filthy. The older one, maybe 8 or 9, had eyes like a cornered animal, wild, desperate, ready to fight or flee. The little one just stared at him, with hollow blue eyes that had seen too much for such a small face. "Easy now," Jake said, crouching down slowly, hands visible. "Nobody's taking anybody anywhere." But the older girl backed away, dragging her sister with her. "That's what the last man said. Right before he—" Her voice cracked, and she couldn't finish. Jake's jaw tightened. He'd been a lawman once, before the war changed everything. He knew the look of children who'd been through hell. "What's your name, little miss?" "Emma," she whispered. "This is Lucy." "Well, Emma and Lucy, I'm Jake. And right now, you're safe." He glanced toward the horizon where dust clouds were gathering. "But we need to get you inside. There's riders coming, and something tells me they ain't bringing good news." Emma's face went white. "They found us." Jake stood slowly, his hand instinctively moving to his gun belt. "Who found you?" But before she could answer, the sound of hoofbeats echoed across the valley, distant but getting closer. Emma grabbed Lucy and pulled her deeper behind the trough, terror written across both their faces. "Please," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her cheek. "Keys, don't let them take us back." Jake looked at these broken children, then at the approaching dust cloud. Whatever choice he made in the next few minutes would change everything. For them, for him, maybe forever. The hoofbeats grew louder. Jake's mind raced as he studied the girls' faces. Emma's desperate grip on her sister, the way they both flinched at every sound. These weren't just scared children. They were running from something specific, something that had marked them with bruises barely hidden beneath the dirt. "Emma," he said quietly, "who's coming for you?" "Mr. Cartwright," she whispered, the name coming out like poison. He bought us from the orphanage, said we'd work off our keep at his place." Her voice dropped to barely audible. But it wasn't work he wanted. Jake's blood turned cold. He'd heard whispers about Silas Cartwright, a man who collected debts and children with equal cruelty, a man who operated just outside the law's reach because he owned half the county officials. "How long you been running?" 3 days. We ain't had nothing to eat since yesterday morning." Jake glanced toward his cabin, then back at the dust cloud. Taking these girls in meant war with Cartwright. It meant giving up the quiet life he'd built after hanging up. His badge. But, looking at Lucy's hollow eyes, at the way Emma trembled while trying to be brave, there wasn't really a choice at all. "Come on," he said, scooping Lucy into his arms before Emma could protest. "Get inside, now." "But what if Emma—" His voice carried the authority of his old badge. "Trust me." They'd barely made it through the door when the riders crested the hill. 5 men, led by Cartwright himself. A mountain of a man with dead shark eyes and hands that had never known honest work. They pulled up in Jake's yard like they owned it. "Morning, Hartwell," Cartwright called out, not bothering to dismount. "Heard you might have seen a couple of runaways, little girls, property of mine." Jake stepped onto the porch, deliberately casual, his hand nowhere near his gun. "Yet. Can't say I have." "Silas." Cartwright's smile was winter cold. "Mind if we take a look around? Just to be thorough." Behind him, Jake could hear Emma's sharp intake of breath. Lucy had gone completely silent, the kind of silence that spoke of learned terror. "Actually, I do mind," Jake said evenly. "This is private property." The smile faded from Cartwright's face. "Don't make this difficult, Hartwell. You know who I am. You know what I can do to a man's life in this county." Jake stepped forward, and something in his movement made all 5 men tense. "I know exactly who you are, Silas. Question is, do you remember who I used to be?" The silence stretched between them like a drawn bowstring. Cartwright's eyes narrowed as recognition flickered across his face. Jake Hartwell, the federal marshal who'd cleaned out 3 territories before the war broke him. The man who'd never backed down from a fight, no matter the odds. "That was a long time ago, Hartwell," Cartwright said, but his voice carried less certainty now. "You're just a rancher now, a nobody with a small spread and smaller prospects. Maybe so. Jake's hand drifted closer to his Colt. But my aim hasn't gotten any worse. One of Cartwright's men shifted in his saddle, and Jake's eyes flicked to him, a subtle warning that had the hired gun freezing mid-motion. You're making a mistake, Cartwright continued. Those girls belong to me. Legal and proper. I got the papers from the territorial orphanage. Papers can say a lot of things, Jake replied. Doesn't make them right. Inside the cabin, he could hear Emma whispering urgent reassurances to Lucy. The sound of a child comforting another child when both should be playing with dolls instead of running for their lives. Cartwright leaned forward in his saddle. I'll give you one chance to walk away from this, Hartwell. Turn over my property, and we'll forget this ever happened. Fuse, he gestured to his men. Well, accidents happen, especially to men living alone in the middle of nowhere. Jake felt the familiar cold calm settle over him, the same feeling he had had before every gunfight that mattered. Silas, I want you to listen real careful. Those girls aren't leaving with you. Not today. Not ever. You got a problem with that? You're welcome to try and change my mind. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Cartwright's men exchanged glances, suddenly less eager now that they recognized what they were facing. A man with nothing left to lose was dangerous. A man protecting children was lethal. You think you can take all 5 of us? Cartwright sneered, but there was sweat on his brow despite the cool morning air. Don't have to take all 5, Jake said quietly. Just have to take you. His hand settled on his gun grip, and the message was clear. Cartwright would be the first to die, regardless of what happened after. From inside the cabin came a small sound. Lucy crying. Emma's voice followed, soft and broken. It's okay, Lucy. The man said he won't let them take us. Cartwright heard it too. His face twisted with rage and something uglier. Those girls cost me good money. I ain't leaving empty-handed. He raised his hand, signaling his men. Jake drew. The gunshot cracked across the valley like thunder. Cartwright's hat flew off his head, the bullet passing so close it singed his hair. He froze, eyes wide, staring at the smoking barrel of Jake's Colt. Next one won't miss, Jake said calmly, though his heart hammered against his ribs. Your choice, Silas. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then Emma's voice drifted from inside. Is he really going to protect us? Lucy's whispered reply cut through every man present like a knife. I don't know. Nobody ever has before. The words hit Jake harder than any bullet. He thought of his own daughter, lost to fever 3 winters past. Mary Beth, with her bright laugh and fearless spirit. She'd been about Lucy's age when the sickness took her. Cartwright must have seen something change in Jake's face because he started to reach for his own gun. But Jake was already moving, stepping down from the porch with deadly purpose. I said your choice, Jake repeated, but his voice had gone soft, the kind of soft that preceded violence. But let me help you decide. You see, I lost a little girl once, buried her under the oak tree out back. Every morning for 3 years, I've wondered what I'd do for another chance to protect a child who needed it. He stopped 10 feet from Cartwright's horse, close enough that there'd be no missing. Today, I've found out. One of Cartwright's men, a young kid who probably signed on for easy money, slowly raised his hands. Boss, maybe we should— Shut up, Cartwright snarled, but his confidence was cracking. They're just kids, just property. No, came Emma's small voice from the doorway. She'd crept out, Lucy clinging to her dress. We ain't property, we're people. Jake glanced back and saw Emma standing straight despite her fear, protecting her sister with nothing but courage and fierce love. The same way Mary Beth used to protect the barn cats from his old hound dog. You heard her, Jake said, turning back to Cartwright. They're people, and people get to choose their own path. Emma stepped closer, her hand finding Jake's arm. The gesture was simple, trusting, a child placing faith in an adult for maybe the first time in her young life. We choose to stay with Jake, she said clearly. Lucy nodded, peeking out from behind her sister. He's nice. He didn't grab us or yell. The simple words carried more weight than any legal document. Cartwright saw it too. The way Jake's stance shifted, becoming not just protective but paternal. This wasn't just about law anymore. It was about family. This ain't over, Cartwright said finally, backing his horse away. Yes, Jake replied quietly. It is. Cartwright wheeled his horse around, his men following in hasty retreat, but Jake knew the man's type. He'd be back with more guns, or he'd find another way to make trouble. As the dust settled, Jake holstered his weapon and turned to find both girls watching him with something between hope and disbelief. Are they really gone? Emma asked. For now, Jake knelt down to their level. But, Emma, I need you to understand something. Men like Cartwright don't give up easy. If you stay here with me, there might be more trouble coming. Emma's chin lifted with determination that reminded him painfully of Mary Beth. We ain't afraid of trouble, mister. We've been living in it our whole lives. Besides, Lucy added, with the matter-of-fact wisdom that only small children possess, you got a gun and you're nice. That's better than anyone else we ever met. Jake felt his throat tighten. Well then, I reckon we better get you girls cleaned up and fed proper. Can't have you facing trouble on empty stomachs. The next few hours passed in a blur of heated water, soap, and the simple miracle of children's laughter echoing through his cabin again. Emma proved to have a quick mind and quicker hands, helping with everything from cooking to mending their torn dresses. Lucy followed Jake like a shadow, chattering about everything and nothing, the first real conversation she'd probably had with an adult who wasn't trying to use or hurt her. That evening, as they sat around his table sharing the first real meal the girls had eaten in days, Emma looked up at him with serious eyes. Jake, what happens now? He set down his fork, considering his words carefully. Well, I figure this old ranch could use some help. Chickens need feeding, garden needs tending. Of course, any hired hands would need schooling too. Can't have ignorant ranch hands. Emma's eyes went wide. You mean, we can really stay? If you want to, Lucy clapped her hand. This together. Can we call you Pa? The word hit Jake like a physical blow, but not an unpleasant one. He looked at these two brave, broken little souls who'd somehow found their way to his door, and saw not just his chance at redemption, but theirs at childhood. I'd be honored, he said quietly. 3 months later, when the territorial judge finally tracked down Cartwright's illegal adoption papers and arrested him for child trafficking, he found Jake's homestead transformed. A garden flourished where weeds once grew, chickens pecked contentedly in a new coop, and laughter, genuine, joyful laughter, drifted from the cabin windows. Emma had grown 2 inches and learned to read. Lucy had nightmares sometimes, but they came less often now, soothed by bedtime stories and the knowledge that Jake's room was right next door. Years later, Emma would become the territory's first female schoolteacher. Lucy would marry the preacher's son and raise 4 children of her own. And Jake Hartwell, the broken marshal who had thought his protecting days were over, would live to see them both safe, loved, and free. But on that first night, as he tucked 2 small girls into beds made of fresh hay and clean blankets, Jake simply whispered a prayer of gratitude to whoever had sent these children to heal his wounded heart. Outside, the prairie winds sang lullabies through the cottonwoods, and for the first time in 3 years, the Hartwell Ranch felt like home.